Hello, Rock board members. Today's video is on infrastructure and your Rock's financials. Before we get started by talking about the financial side of things, though, let's talk about infrastructure. What is infrastructure? Infrastructure is all the physical stuff throughout your Rock that allows people to live a safe and comfortable life in their manufactured homes. Okay, that's still a bit vague. Let's try this. Infrastructure includes
your water system, which includes your water lines and your water source, which could be a connection to your town or city, or it could be a well or two on site. It's your sewer system, which might include sewer lines that connect to your town or city's sewer system, or it could include a number of septic systems and leach fields on site. It's your stormwater system, any culverts, catch basins, drainage ditches, etc. that you might have in your community. It's your roads and street lighting, your electrical system, your community mailboxes if you have them, your Rock-owned buildings, and even your land and landscape. This last one might seem weird to include at first, but for communities that are partly in a floodplain or that have a potentially eroding ravine, the land itself must be managed to provide safe housing for everyone. Infrastructure is all of this and sometimes more. Hopefully you get the idea. Now, when it comes to infrastructure and your financials, it's crucial to understand that there are two types of infrastructure expenses. Annual maintenance, the everyday, every month, or every year tasks required to keep your infrastructure running smoothly, and capital improvements. Capital improvements are usually big expenses that add to, replace, or upgrade large sections of your infrastructure. Because they're big, they usually take a number of years to save up for. But the improvements last many years, if not decades, so they're worth saving for.
Okay, pop quiz time. First, I'm going to list some things for my own personal budget involving my own personal infrastructure, my house, and I'll have you take a moment and decide whether it's regular upkeep or a capital expense. All right, let's get started. Snow removal, replacing a roof, fixing a broken window, cleaning a furnace, installing an oil tank, and buying a snowblower. Of those 6 items, which are upkeep and which are capital expenses based on the definitions we went over? Okay, time's up. Snow removal is upkeep because you got to do it every year whether you like it or not. Roof replacement is definitely capital because it's a huge undertaking. Fixing a broken window is annual upkeep because it's a small scale job, and even though you hopefully don't have to do this job every year, stuff like this happens every year. Furnace cleaning is annual upkeep, highly recommended. Oil tank replacement, definitely capital. Buying a snowblower, it's something we're saving up for and will hopefully last you many years, so it's capital. Okay, one last pop quiz, I swear. Of these Rock-related expenses, which are upkeep and which are capital? Replacing a septic system, road sealing, road repaving, water testing, septic pumping, building a new community center, and snow removal. Ready? Go.
Okay, how'd you do? Septic replacement is definitely capital because it's a considerable expense and it should last several years. Road sealing is annual upkeep. Road repaving is capital, very expensive. Water testing is regular annual upkeep. Septic pumping is upkeep. Even if you don't have to pump every septic every year, you should have your co-op septic pumped on a regular schedule. Community center construction, capital. Snow removal, just like the personal example, is annual upkeep. Okay, now after that round of fun, let's talk about how all this relates to financials, finally. Honestly, if you have a better handle on the difference between upkeep expenses and capital expenses after being hit with those pop quizzes, that's half the battle.
Why? Because the differences between upkeep and capital lead to other key differences in your financials. For example, regular infrastructure upkeep gets paid out of your operating account,
the same account where lot rents are deposited and where all of your other regular expenses are paid. Capital expenses, on the other hand, are paid out of a special savings account called your replacement reserves. Infrastructure upkeep also shows up on the regular sections of your main profit and loss reports, whereas capital expenses show up on a special section of the profit and loss report at the end. And upkeep is part of your regular annual operating budget, whereas capital expenses are on their own separate budget called the capital improvement plan. We'll be exploring these three differences in a bit more detail for the remainder of this video.
First, let's touch upon why large capital expenses are paid out of the separate replacement reserve account. It's essentially there for the same reason that you personally might have a savings account to save up for big expenses. It's to ensure that every month the co-op is putting money aside into savings for the future, for the big projects that can take many years to save up for. You want to make sure that when it's time to start a big construction project, the money is safe and sound. Your replacement reserve account is usually overseen by your lender to make sure it's safe and used for needed capital expenses. You'll most likely have to fill out a form to use funds from this account to show that you're using resources for a capital project that has already been budgeted for, or to show that there's a strong need to do a capital project even if it wasn't budgeted. There are a few reports in your financial packets you get every month to monitor the activity of this replacement reserve account. You can start by taking a look at the overall replacement reserve balance by checking out your co-op's balance sheet. This report is usually on one of the very first pages of your financial packet. Here's an example from a real co-op. You can see at the top of this balance sheet the balance of this co-op's main operating account, where rents go, where regular expenses including regular infrastructure upkeep get paid. And you can also see the co-op had a replacement reserve balance of $401,887.60 on November 30th, 2019. You can also see the balances of other reserve accounts here. I'll do another short video explaining what these are and how they work in the near future. For more detail on the month activity in this replacement reserve account, you can scroll or thumb through your financial packet until you find the rather lengthy general ledger report we talked about in the prior video on understanding budget variances, which I'll put a link to below. The very first page of this general ledger report has ledgers for all your various accounts. Look for the one with the replacement reserve label. Here, using this real co-op's November general ledger, you can see a number of things. The end of the month balance, $401,887.60, the same as provided on the balance sheet, is listed on the lower right. The start of the month balance for this account is listed on the upper right of this section. There are also 4 entries, 4 things that happened in this account this month. For these account ledgers that are listed on the general ledger, money deposited or added to the account is positive, and expenses paid out of the account are negative. You can see that the account, since it holds a lot of money, added $172 of interest this month. Nice. There was one expenditure of $38,380 out of this account, and we can see from the somewhat cut off description that it appears to be a paving project. And you can see 2 deposits made, one for $2,083 and one big one for $90,000. Since I know this co-op pretty well, I know that the $2,083 is the regular amount that this co-op moves from their main operating account into this replacement reserve account to save every month. The $90,000 is a special amount, the co-op's end-of-year surplus that the members voted to put into savings for big projects in the future. If you want a bit more detail on this activity, or words get cut off in your general ledger like this, there's a third place you can look in your monthly financial packet for a bit more detail, and that's your loan statement that your lender issues every month. It should be even further down in the packet after your general ledger. Here's what it looks like. You can disregard these other escrow and loan balances for now, though it's good to know that they're there for future reference. Hone in on the replacement reserve section here, which is set up in the same way as the section of the general ledger we were just looking at. Yep, we can see notes that show the expense was a paving project. We can also see a note that shows the $90,000 was in fact the co-op surplus moved over. Lastly, know that if you want to get even more info about the paving expense, you can always drill down to the bill itself, which should be included at the end of your financial packet, or you can ask your property manager for a copy. Next, regular upkeep expenses show up on a different place than your capital expenses on your all-important profit and loss budget versus actual report. The procedure to drill down and understand these different types of expenses is the same that we covered in the Understanding Budget Variances video, which again is linked below this video. Start by going to the Profit and Loss Budget versus Actual report. Regular infrastructure upkeep items will show up under the Operations and Maintenance Parent category. You can see a number of upkeep categories just like the ones we covered during pop quiz time, such as water testing, septic pumping, and snow removal. Capital improvement expenses show up in their own category at the bottom of this report. Here you can see the $38,380 roadway and driveway project that we saw come out of the replacement reserve account. For more detail on any of these upkeep items or capital improvements, go to the back of the general ledger report and look within the category you want to know more about, and you'll find expenses listed by individual bills. That will help you find the bills you want to drill down to investigate further, and those bills are located in the back of your financial packet. Now that you have a better handle on how to monitor your replacement reserve accounts activity, and now that you know where to look on your profit and loss reports for both infrastructure upkeep and capital improvement expenses, here are 2 things to look out for. First, make sure your property manager is classifying things correctly. Every once in a while, a big capital improvement expense will show up in the wrong section of the profit and loss report. This could make it difficult to create budgets for your co-op when things are in the wrong place. This is especially the case since upkeep is part of your regular operating budget and capital improvements are on their own separate 10-year budget called the Capital Improvement Plan. We'll have to wait for the next video to explore how this capital improvement plan works in detail. But for now, just remember, everyday upkeep shows up under the operating section and big projects that last many years show up in the capital section. This will help you keep your rocks books in order. Second, sometimes large capital expenses get paid out of your main operating account. This isn't ideal since capital improvements can be expensive. This can make your operating account too low. Yikes. If you spot a big capital expense on your financials and you don't see it coming out of your replacement reserve savings account, talk to your property manager to explore a little further. If it turns out it was paid out of your operating account, you can always have a check sent from your reserve account to reimburse your operating account to fix the error. Thanks for watching. That's going to do it for today. Until the next video, rock on. For those still watching, I do have one other infrastructure and financials point that's more of a 201 or a 301. So it's not in the main video, but it's important. You may have seen in the slide I mentioned that capital expenses can show up on a special section at the bottom of the profit and loss statement or on the balance sheet. What I was getting at there is that at the end of a year, after a year is completed and your ROC goes to have their books reviewed by an accountant, they may make the call to move some capital expenses to the balance sheet. Maybe at some point we'll go over how this works. It involves really exciting topics like depreciation and taxation. But for now, just know that the general flow should be the property manager, capital expenses per the definition we covered, go on the capital section of the profit and loss so that board members that are reading financials have one place to go to look for them. It's simple, streamlined, and then at the end of the year, leave it to the accountant to reclassify if necessary. Okay, that's really going to do it. Take care, everyone.